What is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to High Top Sports Oregon. We can have a little bit of sigh of relief, boys and girls. We've made it. Now we kind of made it. We made it last week, but that wasn't real. We got to enjoy a good old fashioned ass whooping, is what I like to call it. If you had a chance to head on over to the main channel, you would have had a ball if you were a Georgia Tech fan, because I was rolling and having a good time and watching FSU lose. It was an absolute blast. But boys and girls, this show is brought to you today by BetUS. We got a lot to go over. You got the big old bad Wolf, Idaho coming up. We got some recruiting news to talk about, and it looks like the boys at the college game day are feeling how we're feeling here at High Top Sports Oregon. Derek the Duck, how are you doing, big guy? How was your week 0?
My week 0 is great. It started off the weekend with High Top Live in the morning and followed it up with watching Florida State get beat on national television. Always love to see that. Spent the weekend in San Diego. Now, here we are headed into week 1. You got some Duck football on deck here. So, although it's the Vandals of Idaho, we have Duck football this week. So I couldn't be more excited.
You got to tell the wife no more vacations, time to lock it in, and you did make your debut on High Top Sports Game Day, which is a phenomenal show if you guys are get a chance. It's 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I know the West Coast, that's a little bit early, but 6:30 starts game day for your boys. I don't know what to tell you. So come check us out. It's a fantastic show. Derek got his wings, as we like to call it, Saturday. He won't be on this Saturday show. This Saturday show is going to be a treat. When you play more people than Idaho, we'll bring you on for the big ones. But we we got Jake Crane from Crane and Company. He'll be on the show. Gator Insider Ali Peak, and then Ty Hasten on the table for he's in Alabama. He's a fantastic YouTube channel following all sports. So it's gonna be another great show. But Sunday night, I think you're gonna be back for our recap show that we're gonna be ramping up this season, talking all things college football, recapping each and every week. But before we, that's another time of the day. Let's talk about recruiting a little bit. A little bit of not bad news, but just look, we got to give you the good and the bad so you understand what's happening here. I think this might be the last little bit of recruiting that we follow for the season, unless any big time commits or we get any fong bombs that we'll slide into our weekly shows. But Jonah Williams, who we felt that Oregon was going to land, we were very high on him, and this was kind of a back and forth dance with a lot of top schools. Ends up committing to Texas on Saturday, and then Michael Terry, another 4 or 5 star athlete, is set to commit in September. But that fong bomb has come in favor of none other than Texas as well.
Yeah, ever since I threw the horns down on YouTube, Texas is making me a fool out here. So I know the one guy who is so pissed that I threw the horns down, he's having a ball right now at my expense, and I
Oh,
can't
you're
even be mad
right.
about it. So
You're right. That
yeah,
karma.
if he's lurking in if he's lurking in the comments, you win this round. But yeah, Jonah Williams, he had a crystal ball to Oregon at one point. Someone who we would have obviously loved to pair with Trey McNutt, another safety we were bringing in. Doesn't, obviously that's not how the cards rolled. Although the Texas thing, there was a number of factors there, and I do know the baseball situation was a big one because he is another kid who's going to be a 2-sport athlete. And for a long time he was considered very heavily leaning toward Texas A&M and their baseball program. They made it to a national championship this year. Coach leaves. Where does coach go? None other than Texas. So, his primary recruiter in baseball also went to Texas. Texas threw a little bag at him, pulled out the Lamborghinis for his stop, and Jonah threw on the UT hat. So it's a one that hurts for the Ducks. Obviously, we would have loved to have him, whether he comes in as a safety or a linebacker. But it is what it is. It's another one of these things where the recruitment's not quite over yet. Obviously, what happens between now and signing day, nobody really knows. But for right now, it's not looking good for Dan and the Ducks. And then the other one you alluded to, the number 1 athlete in the country who was thought to be trending to Oregon for a while, also picked up a fong bomb to go to none other than UT. He will be, visiting multiple schools, including Oregon, Texas, and Nebraska. So we'll see what happens there before a commitment date. But as of right now, it looks like he's trending toward Texas too.
The Lamborghinis help. Those go a long way. Those go a long way. I think the Ducks need to come off the bag a little bit. Let's get a little cheap over there, out the West Coast team. So I kid, guys. I kid. I poke fun. Sometimes it gets lost in the sauce there, but I'm just joking around. Obviously, there's no issues there. Let's talk about our first college game day, which was fantastic. They pick the national champions, and look, when I saw this, Sheamus, the WWE wrestler guy, picks Notre Dame, obviously in Dublin. That was more of like a homer, get the crowd rowdy pick. So let's minus that pick away as not a legitimate pick. I mean, it could be. I guess I shouldn't knock the pick. He's gonna represent our High Top Sports Notre Dame channel. So shout out to the duck there. But look, this graphic, when I see this, reminds me of what we've seen for the last 5 years, right? 4 or 5 years. But the Oregon was replaced with an Alabama A, right? And maybe sometimes the Buckeye, right? That Buckeye would kind of squeak in every now and then as well too. Oregon is highly favored and highly respected heading into this season. And not that Dez usually gets it right, but Kirk's usually pretty dialed in. So you gotta like Dez just swings from the fences here, boys. I gotta tell you. I mean, his Final Four a couple years ago was atrocious. But of course, Nick's gonna keep it in the homer field. But Kirk, I think I mean, look, that's gotta make you feel good. We've been talking about it all season long, but I think everybody, it's all putting them on notice of the legitimacy that Oregon is bringing to the table this year.
Yeah, 100%. If nothing else, this just kind of proves that the national media is kind of on the Oregon bandwagon. They understand what Dan's bringing to the table. Year 3 for Dan becoming a head coach, this is the time where we could see that upswing a little bit in terms of him hitting his stride as to who he is as a head coach. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I do think this is the most talented roster Oregon has ever had, the most depth up and down. There's not been many years most people can go 3 deep and you're going to see a ton of names that you recognize still. So it's a great problem. And, it's something that reflects here. And kind of like you said, when Dez threw up the first little, I was like, Dez, this is coming from the same guy who I think 2 out of his 4 playoff picks they weren't ranked at the end of the year a couple of years ago. So that tells you him. But yeah, like you said, Kirk, that man knows his shit. He kept Florida State at the playoff. We love him for that. Now he's on the Ducks bandwagon. So
Good guy.
yeah, we love it. Yeah, Kirk's my dude. I'm all for it. But yeah, this is where I like to be too. Actually, I said it before where I was like, I don't know if I kind of like being in the limelight. Like you kind of like that underdog role, and now I'm kind of leaning into it a little bit. You see your logo pop up there, and you're like, that's damn right. You respect that. So it's nice to see, and I think this is one of those years where it feels a little bit different heading into week 1, and hopefully the end of the road leads to where we at this year. Atlanta, where's the final?
It's in Atlanta, I believe, the championship. Love that you're leaning into it. Speaking of national championships, this is not necessarily the last we dive into this, but again, this show is brought to you by BetUS. And when you use the link in the description for your first 3 deposits, you get back 125% up to $2,000 of a deposit. So smash the national championship. I tried to look for this game against the big old Idaho, but it wasn't on. It wasn't on BetUS for this individual game. So I said, let's take advantage of the national championship because, look, as they start winning some games, start taking down these dogs and slicing and dicing them, I expect these odds to probably waver a little bit. So this may be the best that they are, honestly, until probably that October week against Ohio State. But even then, I don't think it really nudges regardless of what happens after that game. They win, though, you could see this adjust a little bit. So check out the link in the description. Do a shout out to our sponsors at BetUS. And let's talk about this big Idaho game. Let's look. I joke. I like to have fun. It's a good time. Dan Lenny comes out today, does his presser. I'm pumped up. I'm fired up. The guy gives me 10 minutes just straight, just nuts to the face. Like not a lick. I mean, I told you before the show, just come out and say, we're going to pulverize these twat muffins in Idaho. Nothing, no disrespect, but that's what we're going to do, boys and girls. Well, don't waste any time. Don't waste my time. Oh, you want to know who's starting? Suck it. You'll see come Saturday. Anything else? All right, boys. I'll see you in week 2. That's what happened shorthand. And that's what should have happened. But Dan's got rules and things to follow, so he can't do those things. But he said that with his eyes. He said it with his body language. And yeah, so if you're going to come to get here, get some vital information, I think the beat writers are trying to figure out how do I come up with 4 articles from this 10-minute interview that old Dan threw us.
Yeah, you're saying he's saying it with his eyes and all this and that because he sure as hell wasn't saying it with his voice. He wasn't saying much of anything with his voice. It's like it's perfect too. I told you at the beginning of the season, when we were talking about some of Dan's interviews, and I said he just gives us nothing, absolutely nothing. Like the man has come off the Nick Saban coaching tree, learning how to not, say the most words with absolutely zero meaning.
He didn't give you any coach talk. He just like, yeah, you'll find out Saturday. It'll come out Saturday. You'll know Saturday. Nope, we've got plenty of people that can play the position. You'll know Saturday. I was like, so the only thing he answered is they asked him about Bo Nix and him starting at the Bronco Denver, and he goes, "Look, that was never the goal. The goal is to win football games, but he's on the right path." Anything else? I was like, I mean, it's fun. I enjoy it, but as a writer, I could imagine just it's exhausting. But look, let's as a fan, what are we looking for in Idaho? What are we hoping to see? Obviously, there's some we got blasted last show for the injury bug, and then there was an injury after that. I may get blasted for this one here, but there's obviously some injuries that they're moving around, especially on the offensive line. Who's starting at center, right? Those things. So I'm sure that's going to be a lot of things that people keep an eye on. And then again, Dylan Gabriel, how does he bode in this new system? I think he's gonna be just fine. I don't think it's gonna be an issue. But what are some things for yourself that you're gonna be keying off in those first two quarters when it's super close?
Yeah, it's one thing I'm really looking forward to is the sheer amount of depth. So something Oregon fans saw last year was a constant rotation. You have the starters end quote, but they might play one play and then they're out and we're rotating dudes already. And that's something I'm actually really looking forward to in this Idaho game, and I think it gives Oregon a wonderful opportunity to get some of these younger guys some snaps early in the game, some meaningful snaps, if you will. But yeah, I'm excited to see how that plays out. Obviously, I'm excited, like everybody else, to see Dylan Gabriel and Evan Stewart and the Jabbar Muhammads of the world come in. But likewise, I'm also excited to see how some of that youth develops on the defensive line. Who's going to be the guy to step up. On the Saturday show, we talked about a breakout player, and I said I think it's going to be Mateo this year. How does Mateo step in? Is he going to make his presence felt early on in this one? And then running the ball, there's an absolute stable of workhorse backs that Oregon brings with about five deep, and I think we're going to see all five of them take many meaningful snaps in this game. Who's the one that steps up and separates themselves behind Jordan James? Does Noah Whittington come back from injury as explosive as we think? Does Jay Harris step up from the D2 level to make that leap to the D1 level and make his presence felt? So there's a lot to look forward to. It's really hard to grab anything about the team in specific when you're playing an FCS opponent like Idaho, but I am excited to see some of these young guys get some snaps and the new faces, making their presence felt on game day for the first time as a Duck.
Couple things to note: that you guys are favored by 45 currently, and I've talked about it on our previous show that we had today on the main channel. And there's two things I want to go. I'm going to go over the 45 and then also the chemistry that's going to be able to get built with playing a team like Idaho. So first being the 45, it seems like it should be an easy cover, and I think you should cover it, but what we saw last week was limited snaps. Limited snaps because of the in-helmet communication now that has been inserted into the game, and you get communication until that 15-second mark, and then it goes away. You saw a lot of guys taking that clock, that time clock, all the way down to the final seconds because the defense is able to talk to their linebacker as well. They're communicating things. They're changing things. My thought process is, and I kind of made this on the show, that, hey, under might be kind of the play for the first couple of weeks while these teams figure out how they're navigating this communication, how they're trying to trick the other guy as much as possible. Coaches are going to be having their hands in the pot more than normal. There could be the flip side of that where they just go to keep this defense, kind of second guessing and almost didn't give them an opportunity to talk in the helmet too. But I think the first few weeks, smashing the under on all of it, not covering, especially big games like this. I mean, SMU was favored by 25. They didn't even break 50 between the both of them, right? They both scored, I think it was like 28-27 or something like that. So a little bit over 60. But I feel like it's going to be something definitely to watch and keep an eye on. I think that conversation will start to stir up as the season goes on. If you think about how many possessions both teams had, it wasn't many. It wasn't many. And it wasn't like they just ran the ball. I mean, they did run the ball pretty effectively, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe Oregon's one of those teams that usually kind of blows those things out of the water with how efficiently they move the ball. So they might be a team you still want to say, hey, they cover the 45. And I'm not saying they're not going to cover because of lack of production. It just simply due to the changes to the game. That will be interesting and fun to watch because of a high-tempo team like Oregon. What I also love about playing Idaho for Oregon is, again, we saw it happen this week with FSU going down to Georgia Tech. You've got DJU coming into this new system. They have a ton of addition on the defensive line. It's supposed to be considered the best defensive line in the country headed into Saturday. This isn't my talking because, I wouldn't say that. This is ESPN analysis, what they're hearing, what they're feeling, the additions from Georgia and things like that. Peyton Kirkland, I believe, going into this. And look, maybe they are the best. But when you're in the nitty-gritty and you're going up against a team like Georgia that's been building for a long time, backs against the wall, you don't have that brotherhood, that chemistry. Oregon doesn't have that as much. They've got a good base. They added key pieces to that, but it's still a big factor to be able to have a few games to allow that connection to sync up even more in games. So look, I joke and I poke fun because that's my job here. It's actually as my title, fun poker. But look, I think it's huge, especially for the transportal. I think this is the preseason in a sense, and not every team gets it, so it's huge.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. I'm kind of with you on that same wave too. If this game were available on BetUS, I would probably be taking, the Idaho points as well. That 45. First off, is what are we looking at? 6 touchdowns. That's a lot. And Idaho. I'm not coming out here and saying that the cream of the crop in the FCS, but I think a lot of fans are looking backwards toward last year and what Oregon did to Portland State week 1. I think it was like 81-7 or something like that. You're right. But that's Portland State. There are levels to it in the
This is
FCS
Idaho
too, and
Tech, boys. Don't hey,
right.
hey.
I hear you. The fair. I'm not. I don't. Idaho is not, the cream of the crop in the FCS by any stretch, but they are better than a Portland State. And to your point, that Oregon does have a lot of pieces that are going to need to gel together on the field. What they put together on a roster and what you're hearing out of camp is all great, but it's going to be a whole different thing waiting to see it, in play on the field. So
They
we'll see
went
how it plays out.
they went 9-4 last year. Don't sleep on the Idaho Vandals or whatever
That's
they're
what I'm
called.
saying. Was it last year they beat Cal? Did they have a P5 win last year?
I think they had a pretty good team last year. Let me see. They beat Eastern Washington. That's a pretty solid team. They beat Nevada. They
Oh, that was G.
did not beat Cal last year. No, they lost to Cal last year.
Okay, well, there we go. They had an FBS win last year.
So that's not. Hey, listen. The other thing is too is the over under 62, right? So that is something to, again, like you said, 81-7. I don't think Idaho scores. So could it be 45-0? And that's why I said. And again, I don't think they hit the 60 mark. I don't. I just, because of the time thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm oversleeping. Maybe I'm overworking it here. You got two different teams with Georgia Tech, and this, again, it's something fun to watch. These are the nuances that we kind of go through with these early games, but plenty of great games going around. Texas, Michigan, Miami, Florida. There's gonna be a lot to watch. And we'll see you guys probably later on this week as well. Of course, smash the like button, subscribe. The channel's growing like a weed. You guys are enjoying the content, gobbling it up. We appreciate it. We love you. This show is powered by BetUS. I'm Sheldon. That's Derek Duck, and we'll see you boys in the next one. Peace and love, baby.